Okay, so since we only have 10 minutes, we thought we would really make it a rapid session. Quick intros. So I'll start. I'm Sebastian, one of the two founding partners of Visionaries Club. I was a VC initially, started out in San Francisco, then turned entrepreneur. So started Amorelie, sold it to ProSieben a couple of years ago, and then started Visionaries Club, pretty much with the intention of starting the fund that we would have always loved to have as founders. So we only have amazing founders, actually just like you, invested in the fund, and we have amazing family business owners, and they're all helping our portfolio companies. And now, latest addition to the fund is the Tomorrow Fund, where we only invest, there's the voice, where we only invest in deep tech companies. And now I have to hand over to you.
Thank you, Sebastian.
Voice lost.
So I'm Daniel. I'm one of the founders and the CEO of Choco. At Choco, we digitize food wholesale. That means on the supply side of our business, we have large food wholesalers, producers, distributors. And on the demand side of our business, we have restaurants, grocery stores, supermarkets, and bakeries. And between them, we process around €1 billion worth of food annually. We've been doing so for the last 4 years, raised around 300 million in venture capital, and we do that across the United States and Europe, and have been very luckily early on the boat together with Sebastian and Visionaries.
And, and I think that's actually part of my little hidden story, that after selling Amorelie, I worked, I took a sabbatical for 9 months, and one of those months I worked at a restaurant, and that's when we met, and Dan pitched in the kitchen and convinced the kitchen to go for Choco, and I don't think they ever left. So, but now we're talking, from a commercial point of view, that makes a lot of sense. But why is it relevant for climate?
Yeah, so I think in terms of asset allocation, there's a major disconnect of what actually would help us to relieve climate change and where kind of the dollars are actually flowing. So when we kind of look at greenhouse gas emissions, then the second largest emittent of it, just after energy production, is actually the food system in itself. That's around 24% of all greenhouse gases. Now, what's interesting in it is that over 40% of all of the products that are being produced, aka the food, is actually going to waste, which means there's absolutely no added value in producing that food in the first place, yet it's one of the largest drivers of climate change. And as such, we believe that by digitizing the food supply chain and solving for food waste, that this is one of the largest levers that we can have to solve for climate change.
And in doing so, what are the key challenges? What headwind are you facing, and how are you trying to solve that?
Yeah. So I think in general, what's the scale of the problem? So the food system essentially connects around 540 million farmers around the globe in every single country. That's the single largest employer on the planet, to 8 billion consumers in every single country. So and as such, it's really the largest network that exists on the planet. It's also, obviously, because it's food we've been eating forever, it's one of the oldest structures on the planet. And at the same time, it's very offline. In fact, food wholesale and food production are some of the least digitized industries on the planet. Only mining is less digital, and mining is the act of getting stones out of the ground. And so the core challenge here really is to create technology that can be adopted in real-world companies that ship food, that drive logistics, and really create this global digital network. And so enabling really in offline industries is the core challenge.
Mm-hmm. And it's so funny with the voice. In terms of how the funding environment has changed, was that actually, to me, you're one of the champions in fundraising, actually. I always watch in awe from the sidelines how Dan, whenever he's doing I'm just in New York, I always know what's happening. You're raising another round. But, things have changed a bit. How has that impacted the company? And to stay in a positive mood, what are the upsides that you've actually taken from it?
Yeah, first of all, thank you. I think the most important thing at fundraising is that your current investors help you raise the next round. So you were very early, so thank you for that. But I think in general, the current market situation will just enable businesses to become better businesses. Yeah, I think where in the past only top-line growth was what everyone was optimizing for, now we actually need to look at efficiency, at capital allocation, and we really need to drive better businesses, and as such also become more resilient. We as Choco, we've been very fortunate because actually we suffered a lot during COVID, during the pandemic. Our transaction volume dropped by nearly 95%. But we could react to it, and that made us a very resilient company in the first place. And I think now in a very short company history, we are already facing the second, I would say, a major crisis, really. But you know, that resilience, I believe, really creates great companies. Yeah? And I believe there will always be money for good ideas and for good companies in any market situation.
And talking about all these crises, and I mean, Choco has been around for 4 years, so actually not that long, and in those 4 years, having to endure 2 crises, also having seen your role as a CEO change. So on one part of my question is, how has your role as a CEO actually changed, and how have you coped with that? What are some energy management practices, focus management practices that you've employed to make that transition as well as a CEO?
Yeah, it's actually a very interesting question, because I believe that, so if the CEO or the leadership team is not optimistic and is not looking forward toward the future, then the company has no future.
Yeah.
And I think as such, like just managing oneself's psychology and is key to going through crisis. And within that, there's a couple of, I think, core values that one must stick to, which are your company core values, essentially, no matter how the external environment changes. And I think, you know, fundamentals like hope and camaraderie and ethics are key to really stick to them, and you must be really careful and strongly holding on to those, and then you manage, I think, throughout any...
And how did you implement that, actually? So on a very operational level, when you talk about hope, camaraderie, etc., could you give us some examples how you use that?
I think the first thing to do is like to say it, right? The sheer belief that something will work out increases the rational probability of it actually working out.
Yeah.
Right, and I think the first thing is to say that and bring that positivity into day to day, and that really also forms the team together. And I think there's also beauty in crisis, right? There's there's, so to speak, a common enemy. There's a common hurdle that we must overcome.
And crazy focal effect, of course. It really focuses your attention.
Yeah. It focuses your attention. It really brings the team together. And like we believe that actually humans like play their best when in adversity, when in crisis. And so that's why I think it's also a great opportunity actually as well. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So if I may ask back, so now with Visionaries, which, you know, as a fund and you and Robert as the founding team, we've always respected. And I think you always ask founders, okay, like, why are you actually doing what you're doing? But why are you doing what you're doing?
Yeah, so pretty much, I think I'm one of those rare breeds going from venture capital to starting a company and then back to venture capital. And to me, it was a super purposeful decision. So what I'm doing now with the Tomorrow Fund, this is really very purpose-driven for me. I have a son who's 1.5, and I just want to spend my time on very meaningful topics, trying to leave a mark. And I think you can do that perfectly as a founder. You can also do that as an investor who sees himself as a founder, because yeah, I have been a founder. I still, I think how we're running Visionaries, it is super founder-driven on the one hand, but it's also as if we're still founders, because ultimately you also have to, in starting a venture capital fund, you have to do all the things that you have to do when starting a company. So yeah, I really enjoy now going from Amorelie, where I had a singular focus, to now having a bit of a broader focus on different areas, different topics, and then being able to work with founders just like you to pretty much support in making a dent in the universe.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.